No matter what role or capacity you're serving in the local church, it can be really easy, unfortunately, to slip into a maintenance mode mentality where you're just going through the motions and you're getting ready for Sunday, you're getting ready for Wednesday, and it really just becomes more of a job rather than a joy. So today we're gonna talk about really how to focus on the why before the what. Welcome to the Small Town Big Church Leadership Podcast, a place for pastors, church leaders, and volunteers to grow themselves and the local church. We're pastors Brad and Misti Helton, church planters in rural America.
Once you give your life to Christ, we are all called to be a part of building God's kingdom, right? We are all called to share the hope of Jesus with other people. I mean, when Jesus left, it's what we would call the Great Commission. It was like his last words before he left and ascended back into heaven. And for most people, that looks like volunteering in a ministry or in a local church, somewhere where the hope of Jesus is being shared. I mean, there are a few people, right, overall in the spectrum of people who give their life to Christ that God is going to call into like full-time ministry, like pastors like ourselves,
right? Or
maybe you go to work for a church. But for the average believer, most people, it's going to look like volunteering in a ministry.
Yeah, so as a leader in charge or a volunteer serving in your local church, it's easy to get really excited when it's new.
It's fresh.
Right? You're stepping into serving in a new position in your church, or maybe you're taking on a new ministry or a new church as a pastor, and it can be really exciting at the get-go. A lot of times we think the reason that we lose the passion in it all after it feels like the new wears off. But the reality is, it's not that the new has worn off. The reality is that we've really lost sight and we've lost focus of why the heck are we here?
Right.
Like why
are we doing
in my
what
position,
we're doing?
And for us as an organization, for us as a church, why are we doing what we're doing?
That's right. And so the why, whether it's a church or an organization, whether it's your business, maybe you're an entrepreneur, the why is literally, why do you exist?
It drives you.
Right. What's the reason? What's the mission, if you will? That's a word that you've heard tossed around. And to be honest, like for most organizations, there's a mission statement somewhere, right?
Somewhere.
Maybe on their website, maybe in some churches, it's even hanging up and there's this mission statement on a wall somewhere. But the problem is that mission statement is not literally woven into the fabric of everything that they do.
Right.
All great leaders have to communicate a vision or a picture that they see in their mind before it actually becomes a reality.
They have to get it from here in their head and in their heart and translate it out in a language that
to other people in order to make it happen.
Can understand, but not only understand, but be able to comprehend it and get it down in their hearts and
own it.
Own it.
So like for us, we're church planters. Mm-hmm. And so God put this vision in our head. We literally saw a picture of a church that looked different, right? And so we had to somehow get the picture we had in our head into the minds and the hearts of every volunteer, on the employees that we hired to come on board with us, in order to make that picture become a reality. Well, the why is what drives that picture. I mean, every time you show up to make that dream become a reality, the why has to be at the core of what we do.
Right. It caused us to be very specific when it came to crafting our why, which is our mission statement. So our mission statement is to lead people into a real and life-changing relationship with Jesus that's contagious. And so when you see some really powerful words,
and that was
crafted,
intentional when we
very
built that,
intentional,
right?
Because we wanted to keep those words alive continually in our culture and as we develop leaders and volunteers within the church. So as we talk about our why do we do what we do? It's to lead people into a relationship with Christ, but not just any sort of relationship. And you look at relationship just in itself, and what we're saying by that is not religion.
Right.
Because
not routine.
Our
not rituals of just
exactly,
showing up
not,
on Sunday.
Not legalistic routines of do this, don't do that, don't do that. Because we had seen so many churches operating this way. We saw them doing church, if you will.
Right.
But there was no real. It was more religion.
Well, and we
than
saw
it was
people,
relationship.
We saw people who were lost, who what they thought of church was legalistic rules that they had to follow, rituals, and just religion, right? And they would call us, they would say, are you religious? And I actually love to tell people I hate religion. Because I think Jesus hated religion.
Really
that's why he came, was about relationship, right? When we planted, we expected to grow a church. We started with one couple in our living room, like on a little love seat. That's all we had, right? A tiny little house in our living room. We, in our mind, we saw a big church. But we weren't looking to just grow a big church because our why was about leading lost people to Jesus. So we had to start thinking about what we would do based on our why. So what we would do was getting lost people to our campus. It drove everything. And once they showed up here, if they're lost and they don't know Jesus, what did we need to do to help them to feel comfortable, to feel like they could come in? They didn't have to get their life all together, that misnomer of like, I'll get my life together and then I'll go to church. We were saying, no. We know that we catch them, God cleans them. We've got to put into place the what that will bring lost people in. As an organization begins to grow, and as a church begins to grow, and all of a sudden you're seeing that vision become a reality, there's a lot of things that need to be done, a lot of what's, okay? And so if we're not careful, we show up and we're very task driven. We know exactly what we need to do. And it's easy to slip into this mentality of forgetting why we do it. Everybody is doing something that should be pointing back to the why. Just like, we talk about all the time here that our priority is God's presence. Well, what we do in order for God's presence to be here every time we show up, we come in on Saturday night and we pray. That's what we do. Do we always feel like it? No, but we do it because of our why. Because we want God's presence there. Every time people come into our sanctuary, into our services, every chair has been prayed over on Saturday night and even Sunday morning. That's what we do. But why we do it is because we know that a lost person could be sitting there that morning and they need God's presence. Nothing I say, nothing I do can make them make that decision to surrender their life to Jesus. Only God's presence breaks down those barriers and causes someone to want their life to change. I love Simon Sinek. He is an author. He's a secular author, but he teaches on the why a lot. And he wrote a book a few years ago, and it's called Start With Why. And in this book, he talks about the golden circle. And I kind of want to explain this to you because I want you to see this picture in your head. And the golden circle is these three circles, if you will, okay? Concentric circles in one another. And you've got this outside ring. And that outside ring represents the what we do, okay? In any business, organization, church, what we do. So we as a church, what we do is we have services, right? Every church does. We have events where people gather. The middle ring, that middle circle, is the word how. This can be different from church to church, from business to business, right? So the how is literally our strategy or our habits or the routine that we put in place to accomplish our mission or our why. But that center, that core of those three circles is the word why. And it's the smallest circle, but it's the most important. Because here's what happens. Any business knows what they do. Apple knows they make and they sell iPhones, right? But how many on the front line understand why Steve Jobs wanted to create the iPhone? That's what has to be understood in the heart of every individual who serves, whether it is on a volunteer position or whether you're paid staff as a pastor. It has to drive everything that you do. And so we want to take just a minute to just talk through some of the symptoms that if you begin to experience these symptoms, okay, it needs to trigger in your mind. Like if I have a symptom, then I know that my why is fading. And if you let it fade too far, you will burn out. So right now we want to give you the symptoms, but then we want to tell you if you see those symptoms,
right,
what do you do?
Right. So there's 5 things that we want to share with you. The first thing is maybe you have lost passion or excitement. And I know we've talked about this, but we're just making it black and white. If you've lost passion, if you've lost the motivation and the excitement.
Probably one of the first symptoms.
Yeah, to continue serving in the role in which you're serving. Listen, that can be, if you can be the senior or lead pastor, and you can feel that and sense that. We have felt that many times. And we have to fight against it. Because remember, there's an enemy who doesn't want you to fulfill your purpose and your calling for being on this planet.
He wants you to think that you're not making a difference. And that's how the enemy works. Okay, so the second symptom is you think or even you verbalize this statement, I have to serve today. Rather than I get to serve. It's the obligation of feeling like I'm obligated to go and serve rather than feeling grateful that you get to be a part of making a difference. Because at the end of the day, we are making a difference every time we show up because God's word doesn't return void. His presence is here. And even if we don't always feel like it, we have to know lives are being changed.
And it may seem small, but it's a matter of language. And a good leader will be very sensitive to the type of language that people on their team use.
Yes.
Because if you're not, unless you're really paying attention and really listening, you won't catch that a volunteer has said, "Hey, I have to go serve over here." I mean, hey, you don't want to be like totally anal retentive and just really, you don't want to be a total, You don't
want to rip somebody.
You don't
for
want to rip
saying
them,
it, right?
But you do want to correct, incorrect language and help as a leader, just help them to see things in a better perspective and say, hey, I want to challenge you. Instead of saying I have to go do this, just say I get to.
So symptom, do you want to add something else?
I'm going to number 3. Number 3 is you see what you do as more of a job rather than a calling. Okay, this is huge. Strongly related to the previous one that we just shared, but whether you're a pastor or whether you're a team lead over a department in your church or you're a volunteer, it's all about how you perceive what you do week in and week out. I've seen, many pastors over the years that unfortunately, their calling led to burnout because they saw what they were doing as more of a job rather than a calling. And so if we can keep the calling perspective in front of us and remind ourselves continually, man, this is what God is. This is why I'm here. I love Ephesians 2:10. It talks about how many years ago, before you were ever even born, God prepared you for the good things that you're doing now.
Yes.
Don't lose sight that what you're doing is a ministry. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you are at the church and you're in a janitorial role. For so many people, they think that this is like the bottom rung. No, it is not the bottom rung of we thrive on having a clean, beautiful facility where it smells good and it's very, very clean. So it's a really important job. But
it leads right back to your why.
It leads right back to your why. You want people to come in and feel like, man, they take a lot of pride and responsibility in making sure that this place is tip top. Right. And if they're going to take that much care and concern for this place, they're going to take care of me spiritually and my family. Yeah. So if you're not careful, though, if you can be serving in a role where you're cleaning toilets and mopping the floor and you can think to yourself or allow the enemy to tell you in your mind that what you're doing is a job and it's not a calling and it's just simply not true.
That's right. All right. So the fourth reason or the fourth symptom that you might face is when you feel like you're in a rut or you're just going through the motions. All right. So when you begin to sense this, I'm just showing up, I'm just doing what needs to be done, I'm just doing the what, then you know that why is faded a little bit.
Right.
All right. And number 5.
Number 5 is you're more excited about the event or service being over.
Yeah.
That hits a little too close to home because there are so many Sundays that we have felt this way. We've had to be very intentional to fight against it. But these are symptoms, all right, that we've covered. The last 5 symptoms that we've covered, we're trying to just help you to identify, are any of these a reality in your ministry or in your calling, in your walk with God? If it is, we want to encourage you right now to just think in your mind, go back to, okay, why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why are we as a church or a ministry doing what we're doing?
Just very practically, what we do here at Mountain Movers to keep that why in front of people is we huddle. Just like an athletic team will huddle before they go out on the court or out onto the field, we huddle with our teams before we go out to serve. And when we huddle, we remind one another, we remind our teams why we are here, why we showed up this morning, regardless of what happened at home, regardless if you got in a fight with your family on the way to church today, regardless of what your week has looked like. Why are we here? We remind them. And then then after it's over, many of our teams do a post huddle. And what we're doing is we're celebrating then what we actually saw happen. So we are here, our why, to lead people into that real and life-changing relationship with Jesus that's contagious. So we have to constantly celebrate life change.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that today's content has been highly beneficial to you. And we just want to remind you before we go, please keep the why before the what.